Good morning, everybody. It's Graham again from Unearthed, and this episode of Detecting Talk is based around metal detectors themselves. Now, a lot of you guys that watch this will probably agree to some extent with what I'm about to say, but it is we live in strange times, in so much as when I first started metal detecting many moons ago, there was really only a handful of metal detectors that you could choose from to use personally. Now, 20 or 30 years down the line, a few decades later, there's a whole host of different detectors out there for people to buy, to use. The choice is overwhelming, really, when you look at it, and it just goes on, and there's more machines on the horizon, and the choice is ever widening, and it is a minefield for people. Pardon the pun, it's an absolute minefield for people to choose the right detector. So I hope this episode goes somewhere in helping people make the decision on which detector to buy, purchase, use, etc, etc. Now, some of you guys, a little bit like me over the years, have been very loyal to particular brands, which I can understand. I'm very loyal to my particular machine. In my eyes, it's one of the best out there that does the job. On Arable Land, which is a G2 Plus from Technetics, it's an extremely fast machine. I wouldn't use any other machine on arable iron contaminated sites, and the reason is I do so well with it. I mean, I have found so many things with that machine, it's unbelievable. So fast recovery speed, high levels of sensitivity, ultra fast, ultra quick, lightweight. I've made it wireless. That's all I need. And for under 500 quid, there's no finer machine on the market in amongst them conditions. However, that's my opinion. However, if I was to bring that north, because I do a lot of my detecting in the southern counties and the eastern counties, if I was to bring that machine north and start detecting on Cumbrian pasture, then my find rate would drop, because it's not designed to be a deep-seeking pasture machine. It will find things at decent depth, there's no two ways about that, but there is machines out there that punch deeper, stronger, they see through the coat better, and do better in the north. So it's all about picking the machine to suit the terrain that you detect on, if that makes sense. Now, there's a lot of people on social media, I see this every day with people, straight away somebody asks for a particular metal detector and they put their brand down. No, you don't want to buy that, you want to buy this one. But they forget that, okay, they're using their particular machine and doing very well with it on open, arable, the veg land as we call it, Lincolnshire, Norfolk, Suffolk, all the croplands. So they don't need depth particularly. They need speed, lightweight, ease of use, decent recovery speed, sensitive on the silver and gold. They don't need a deep seeking machine. But if they took their particular machine up here in the north, Scotland, Northumbria, all the pasture lands, to a degree in parts of Yorkshire, etc, etc, you need something that's going to punch down deep on the pasture, and that's where things like the mine labs come in. They're very deep seeking machines, as we've already proved that over the years, and the users have proved that. So it's horses for courses. So down south, a lot of people use the XP Deus and other types of machines, like I mentioned, the G2 Plus, because they do so well on the arable. They're very quick at picking the stuff up. You can whiz over fields with them and it'll pick up everything in the plough soil, and happy days. But it's all about picking the right machine for you. So I get a little bit prickly when people start putting, well, you've got to buy this machine. They forget where these people are living and detecting at. If these are only detected on pasture, then it's not going to do the job. They've got to pick a machine that's right for that particular terrain, that particular area of detecting that they detect on, if that makes sense. So if you're only boxed off to pasture land, like a lot of the guys up here in the north are, they never ever do arable, you're going to pick a machine that's good on the pasture. It's as simple as that. No point in going over with a machine that's great on the plough, in amongst the iron, fast recovery speed, but compromised completely on depth. You're not going to find anything. Some of these multi-frequency machines and some of these deep-seeking machines, they punch down formidable depths for the hammered silvers and the artifacts and bits and other bits and pieces. So you've got to match the machine to the terrain you're detecting on, and I can't emphasize that enough. But we're not going to go into the my machine's better than yours, because it happens all the time. That's happened. It happens in fishing. It happens in all walks of life, all hobbies. You know, you've got to buy this. This is the best. That's going to do the job better than that. It's all to do with personal preference. I've told you my personal preference, and that's the way it's going to be until something better comes out and something you know, that catches my eye. I'm sticking with what I've got because I'm happy with it, and that's what the key is if you're happy with that particular machine you're using, don't get swayed over to the hype and all the you know, all the circus that goes around particular metal detectors. If you're happy with your particular machine and you're finding plenty with it, stick with it by all means. Don't chop and change. There's too many people in this hobby that chop and change. Every 3 or 4, 5 weeks they're using a different machine. How are they going to get used to a particular machine and bed in? You know, you've got to get used to the particular machine that you're using. There's too many people buying machines, not getting the results that they want after a month or two and selling it. And it's wrong to do that. Stick with it, learn it, read the handbook, get some tutorials done if you can, read up on it, get onto YouTube and look at the testing that's done on it off some of the guys. You know which ones to watch and which ones not to watch, and get out in the field and get used to the machine and the signals. Get used to what that machine is saying back to you. That's the key. Now, we get asked every week for particular machines. Now, we get a lot of people coming into the hobby that are brand new, they've never detected before, but they've seen online or they've spoken to friends about particular machines that are expensive, not what I would call a beginner's machine or an introductory machine, and they're asking questions about it. And the answer I always give to people, and I'm going to give it to you guys now on this channel, is keep it simple. There's 3 factors that kick in for us, and this is the advice that I give to everybody. If you can tick 3 boxes, if a detector can tick 3 boxes, then you're on the right lines. The first box it ticks is ease of use. There's no point in you starting detecting and getting bogged down with too much technical data, detectors that can be quite tricky to set, because it's going to instantly turn you off. You're not going to enjoy your experience of detecting, and it takes away the initial excitement of you buying your detector and going out into the field only to find that, oh God, I forgot how to set it, or it's difficult to set, or it's not sounding correctly. I don't know if I've got the particular settings right, because people this day and age, regardless of anything else that goes on, want instant success. We live in a world of instant success. And a lot of people, if they don't get instant success, they blame the detector, which is completely wrong. You've got to get used to it. So the first box it's ticked is ease of use. The second one is it's got to be relatively lightweight. There's nothing worse than buying a detector for the first time, and believe me, I've done this and it was horrendous. And I'll tell you the weight of the detector without saying which model it was, and I'll let you guys guess. It was over £6 well, nearly over £6 in weight. I think it was 5.9 pounds in weight. I was just, and you know, you put a bigger coil on it, it took it over the £6 weight. So you're swinging a £6 detector around for 7 or 8 hours a day. It's not a good experience, folks. So it's got to be relatively lightweight, so you can pick it up, feel the balance of the machine, and you're happy and able to swing that machine for a detecting session or a detecting day. You know, I mean, everybody's detecting day varies. Some people go out for a couple of hours after work. That's fine. You're not really going to get hit by fatigue too much. But there's a lot of guys like myself, you know, we set off at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. We're still on the fields at 5 at tea time, 5 or 6 o'clock. You don't want to be lugging around a big heavy machine. So the next box to be ticked is lightweight. And of course, the third one that's got to be ticked, I think, is, in my opinion, ease of use. We've said that. I'm getting distracted because somebody's ringing. Happy days. The other one to consider is performance. Now, if you've got a detector, then you've ticked the box of lightweight, ease of use, but the performance is compromised, if that's the right word, then it's not going to be a happy experience. So you've got to make sure that the detector is up for the job. So it's got to be relatively deep seeking. You know, it's going to be able to hit the targets down 6-7 inches on pasture, maybe more, 8 inches, for an example, for a ballpark figure. And it's also got to have decent levels of sensitivity. It's got to be quick enough around the iron. It's got to have a decent recovery speed on it, but it's also got to be sensitive to gold and silver. So they're the boxes that need to be ticked first. Now, if you don't, you're going to be a little bit disappointed and despondent, I think, in the hobby. Now, we had a guy a couple of weeks, well, it was actually a couple of months ago, who bought a detector, and I give him the 3 magic words, like I've just give you guys. Ease of use, lightweight, decent performance, you're on the right lines. So we chose between us, with the advice that I gave him, a particular brand. But he came wanting to buy a machine nearly 3 times more expensive than the one he actually ended up with. Of course, 4 or 5 weeks later, he picks up the phone, he gives me a call, he says, you know what? He said, that machine I bought off you, fantastic. He said, it's done everything I wanted it to do. I'm finding plenty of nice things with it. He sent me some pictures over of by email of the coins and artifacts that he picked up. He was really happy. And he said, you know what? He said, I'm so glad I didn't go and burst the bank and buy that particular detector, because I just think I've done the right thing, and I'm going to be able to keep this machine now for 3 or 4 or 5 years, or whatever it's going to be. He might let the warranty run out on it and then get a new one, who knows. But he was really happy with the advice. And I think that's the key, is I wouldn't listen too much to people on social media. There's a lot of people out there that give solid advice, which is fantastic, but be careful of them always, you know, waving the brand banner above their head. You've got to buy this. They don't know where you live. You know, you could live up on the Orkney Isles or the Shetland Isles for all they know. So particular machines for particular jobs. That's why I use the machine I use on the arable stuff and the iron. If I come up in the north, it'll be a different machine. I have a different machine to do a different job. On pasture, I want them deep targets to be hit. I want a machine that's going to pick them up. And we've proven this time and time again by taking these machines out on a pasture with the deeper seeking machines. The deeper machines are hitting the targets, whereas we're going over with our machines to test them, and they're not picking them up because they just haven't got the depth capabilities to do it. But in amongst the iron, picking the coins and artifacts in amongst the arable stuff, they're a formidable animal. So it's horses for courses, folks. So if there's any advice I can give you, don't listen to the hype. Make sure you do your homework, read up on the machines before you buy them, and be prepared to spend some time out in the field actually learning it, because there's nothing worse than wandering off in the field, you're not getting the results you want after a couple of weeks, and then you're wanting to sell the machine back, or you're putting it on eBay to sell as a second-hand unit. Nothing worse than that. Learn the machine. You know, I've had lots and lots of machines over the years. I started off with a really basic machine with a meter needle on it, which was great when we were kids. We found all sorts, but it had no discrimination. And then I was moving up to things like the Arado, which was a great machine for me, I thought, at the time. And then the Tesoro machines came out in the 80s, and we started using things like the Royal Sabre and the Golden Sabre and the Silver Sabre and the Toltec 100 and the Toltec 80, and I found loads of stuff with them because they were easy to use. They were basic machines in so much as they weren't complicated. Once you set the discrimination and the sensitivity, it was happy days. But I tell you what, we found loads and loads of stuff. But of course, technology moved on. Their machines took a backward step and other machines came to the forefront. And then that's when we started getting problems. I remember picking up a particular machine. I paid quite a lot of money for it at the time. I just could not use it. It was a horrible machine to use. It was a horrible machine to set. I ended up using it for probably about 6 or 7 months, so I'll give it a really good go. I couldn't get on with it. I was using it on medieval sites and Roman sites. This thing wouldn't pick the stuff up. In the end, in frustration, I sold it, and I was glad to see the back of it after giving it some time. I sold it to a guy, and he found a gold coin with it the first week. You know, what was I doing wrong? Was I doing anything wrong? Did he walk over it? Did I just not use it correctly? I'm pretty sure I was using it as best to my ability, and I was using it just the same as other people used it. It just wasn't for me. So you've got to do your homework, folks, on getting the right detector, because it's all about having that good experience out in the field. Don't listen to hype. Listen to the guys that give you sound advice. It's the only way I can describe it. Everybody has their favourites, and that's a fantastic world we live in, and that's the way it should be, because if we were all the same, it'd be a weird world, wouldn't it? But just be careful about listening to hype, because you will get burnt. If it doesn't match your particular fields that you detect on, or the sites that you detect on, or the areas that you detect in, you ain't going to work. Okay, folks, I hope that helps, and I hope that's useful for you. If any of you are attending the NCMD rally at the weekend up near Preston, I will be there, so come in and say hello. We've got the trade stall on the day. I hope you guys find many nice things this weekend coming, and I'll catch up with you next week for the next episode of Detecting Talk. Bye for now.